Ultimately, like, architecture is not first and foremost in what we do. Like, we're ultimately like a very highly driven service organization. And I like to imagine that we're like working the front desk at like the nicest, most comfortable hotel in the world,
right?
That I've ever been to. Like, so when people come to us, they feel seen and understood.
They can give you any request.
They can give us the request, and we won't necessarily like go, sorry. Sure. They buy an asset, and there's a reason why they buy the asset. It has a beautiful yard. It has a garage. It has a certain amount of bedrooms. It has a certain amount of bathrooms. And so they come in, they want to live there. They want to do it their way, or they've seen something that they want to replicate. Whatever those goals and values are, what does it do to the asset that they've purchased? And so it's when they start sort of removing the fabric of the very thing that they purchased, where all of a sudden they've just thrown the asset that they purchased. They paid a lot of money for this asset. They've just thrown it out the window. I tell my clients all the time, like, you just threw that out the window going down the 101. For me, the thing that you can cheap out on is just the thought about what to do. It's almost better to spend all your money thinking about what to do and then just never do anything. Because the truth is, it's that like hysteria that you're talking about of like, we have to do something.
Yeah.
We have to.
What's it going to be? We have to cut something.
We've bought this unbelievably, incredibly expensive thing, and now what are we going to do with it? Like, sometimes the answer is nothing. It's all faux. It's in the service and understanding our clients' values and who they are that like I can take my sort of big ego out of it. And even though I want to be doing certain things, we're really good at understanding like what makes for a really good house.
Hey everyone, welcome back to All Things Real Estate. I'm your host, Ari Wintraub, and I'm really excited for my guest today, Sonny Charles Ward, a principal architect at a boutique architecture firm here in Los Angeles. Because Sonny, unlike a lot of our guests who are, let's say, lone wolf entrepreneurs doing their own thing, pursuing real estate in some regard or another, Sonny runs an office with a staff and maintains that while still being creative and being in the real estate space. So I'm excited to hear how he does that and get to know him some more. But before we jump into it, I want to take a moment to ask you to please follow, like, subscribe, share a show with somebody. Would be greatly appreciated. So without further ado, Sonny, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's Charles Sonny Ward.
Okay.
Now, I could just go by Sonny, but anyway, thanks for sticking the Charles in. Appreciate it.
And that's because you're from Mississippi, and growing up in Mississippi, everyone has nicknames, right?
Is that what you think?
That's what I think. Like, even in Hot in a Cat, what is it? Cat on a Hot Tin Roof. Like, his name is Brick.
Yeah.
And like his brother was like,
yeah,
something.
Sonny's like either an old Southern nickname or an Italian mobster, either way. So I don't think Southerners are the only ones that have nicknames, but
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. No, I'm the third, so there were too many Charlies.
Okay.
So they call me Sonny.
Got it. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Tell us about your firm, how you got to running it, your background, and what got you into being an architect.
Okay. Well, how I got to, we'll just go back to architecture. And since we're talking about the South and Mississippi, I grew up in Mississippi. And so I think the first thing as a kid that interested me in architecture was like going to sporting events with my dad. So, we'd be in these big, old, crusty, rundown, but still beautiful sports arenas, concrete stadiums, and they were just so much fun, and they were just, very theatrical, and there were pieces of architecture, outside in the loggia and in the concourse outside around. But anyway, it was just the spectacle of it and the congregating aspects.
That's super cool.
That was just a fun memory. We used to go and watch Jerry Rice and Walter Payton and like some of the old great Mississippi stars when I was growing up.
Is that Walter Payton from the Bears?
Yeah, Chicago Bears.
I was watching the game last week and I mentioned it to someone. I was like, oh, remember the fridge?
Yeah.
From the Bears, and I was like, he was like, who's that?
Shuffling crew. Yeah. We shuffle on down.
He's like, who's that?
Do you remember their Super Bowl song?
Yeah, the Super Bowl shuffle.
Yeah, the Super Bowl shuffle.
So that's really interesting.
Same Walter Payton. So I grew up like that was, what I remember is, and I built things. I like to tear things apart and build things, And, in the South, I mean, that was kind of the architecture that I remember, though, are sporting venues and churches, a
Right.
lot of churches. So, yeah, I was more fond of the sporting venues. And, my parents, I think, wanted me to be a lawyer or a doctor or something like that and had me take Latin in preparation. But I went to a summer camp at Mississippi State University for architecture.
Cool.
And I just fell in love.
That's awesome.
And so I enrolled there and started school and eventually transferred and moved out here and got my undergraduate at Woodbury and then my master's at UCLA. And the rest is history, so that, now my firm does a lot of residential. June Street was first called DeRosa Ward. I started it sometime around 2004 with a classmate of mine, Alex DeRosa. We were good friends at Woodbury, and he was dumb enough to sort of just decide to start a business one day. And so we opened up a small architecture firm. At the time, we weren't architects, so we couldn't be architects yet. So we were the DeRosa Ward Design Lab.
Got it.
And I was finishing getting my master's at UCLA. Josie, my daughter, was born around the same time. We rented a one-room office in a shared office space on Beverly Boulevard across from Swingers.
Yeah.
We shared it with a company called New Lays.
Oh.
Which was like, they were basically taking those like laser pointers that you point,
like if you're doing a lecture,
like without the focus lens, and they made these little pens where you would sort of rub it on your face. Anyway,
weird.
We started off small. It was kind of fun.
Yeah.
It was above the old 20th furniture store.
But it sounds like you knew you were doing the master's degree that you wanted to become licensed, and maybe you had more of a longer term or more of like you had the kid, you're like, I need to make this into like a legitimate firm and make some real money. Is that right? And then you went on your own?
Yeah, look, I went to college to become an architect, so I had to like try it out.
Yeah. So you got the license, and then that's when you maybe separated, or?
Well, I worked all the way through school. So I worked at architecture firm, so I knew I liked it. I knew I wanted to sort of do my own thing. So I worked for an amazing guy. Mark Whipple was the architecture firm that I worked in West Hollywood. From back then it was called the Russell Group. Now it's called Whipple Russell. But I worked there for maybe at least 4 years.
Right.
Well, maybe 5, because I worked there after I got out of school. Anyway, that's how I learned how to run a firm, be an architect, have a practice. And
Love it. So tell us.
I was lucky enough to have one project from a close friend that ultimately, if you followed back all of our projects to date, 80% of our projects probably go all the way back to that very first project.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Like 6 degrees of separation, like.
Not even 6 degrees. They're probably all like 2 and 3 degrees.
Right. So
but
like that was the base, and then from one person to the next person.
Every single project. Yeah. She had a kid in nursery school, and they had a child in nursery school, and when he would have birthday parties or holiday parties or whatever, all the kids from the school would come over, and so the other parents.
Yeah.
And, so it was just like this built-in advertising. And, I think ultimately it was successful because we were lucky. It was a successful project. It's like some of
their project was successful.
Some projects are more successful than others.
Of course.
Some clients are better than others.
Right.
And that particular project, it hit the jackpot.
What was it?
It was a small facelift, renovation, small addition of a house in Spalding Square, right around the corner, in the Spalding Square Historic Preservation Overlay Zone.
Yeah.
So as a result of that, we sort of sunk our teeth in to historic preservation, whether we wanted to or not. I'd been in architecture school and wanted to be some famous modernist architect. And so this first project, it sort of cut me down to size really fast. It was in this neighborhood with a lot of unqualified volunteer neighborhood professionals on the historic board.
Right. Homes are like 1,800 square feet. They're kind of bungalows, right?
1,300,
yeah,
1,400 square foot house. Yeah. So, so that's kind of how all of our projects grew from that one project.
Yeah.
And so to this day, that's why you still see a lot of our projects with a historic component. More than half of them are probably in preservation zones.
Right. You get hold and people think of you for that.
Yeah, we got really good at it. And so it was both a curse. It felt like a curse at times, but it was ultimately like a business blessing because we had a lane, we got really good at it, and we had to wait. We had to wait for a while until we got those modern new build construction projects or design projects, but it also gave us an experience level that we never would have gotten. An understanding of domestic Los Angeles history and homes if we had just sort of jumped right into designing modern homes.
Right, because it's maybe easier to just have a blank canvas on a flat lot.
Yeah.
So you've defined and just sort of give us, before I get to this next question, give me the kind of breakdown of the office. How many staff, architects? Do you have a partner now?
So Alex and I were partners until like the 2008 downturn, and it was just a good time. I love him. I still love him. But it was a really good time for us to sort of part ways. He was doing nightclubs and I was doing houses. So
he was doing nightclubs like as a guest?
No, he was designing them. So we were designing them. We were doing it. So we had both. It was a weird office. It was weird.
I thought you meant that he was losing focus and he was going.
No. We were both losing focus on the nightclubs, but it was a weird dichotomy, to be doing nightclubs and small historic preservation projects.
Got it.
But the downturn was a nice time to sort of reset. So around that same time, like 2000,
you mean 08, like
08, yeah,
right.
2008. So I started in 2004. So we had been in business like 4 or 5 years and had just really had a great success. Like we went from the two of us in that little office to I think at the height 15 or 17 employees.
Right.
So it happened really fast. Things were going really well.
Okay.
But the crash happened just as fast.
Right.
And so the crash happened. It sort of it just obliterated us. I held on to as long as I could with the last 4 or 5 employees, but we finally, like at the end of the day, it was just me. And we'd moved our office. I was back to a 1-room share with a landscape architect over down the street on Sunset Boulevard. And it was time to start over. And so I took the opportunity, Alex and I parted ways. And around that time, I hired Corey Miller, who's now part half owner and my other principal architect at June Street. And so that was in 2009. And so since then, we've grown. Have been in West Hollywood for over 15 years now. Moved from a couple of different places, starting on Highland and then in the back of my
on top of the garage
guest house on top of the garage on June Street, which is where we got our name, because Corey wasn't my partner at the time, and I was too self-conscious to just have my name. I wanted to keep DeRosa Ward, but that felt weird.
Right.
So I was like, what are we going to name it? And the landscape architect that I had been renting a desk out of basically had named his after a street. And I thought, oh, well, June Street sounds good. So, so that's how we got the name.
You might have seen, when I'm sending stuff out, I have an LLC named Aberfeldy.
Yeah.
And so that's the first street. That's the street that I grew up on. So it's a common thing. An attorney recommended that I look for a street name.
But with that sort of historic preservation thing, June Street, because it is a street that people are aware of in Hancock Park, it's in an old historic neighborhood. It also
the British Embassy is on that street.
Helped to sort of push us. It sort of had kept us in our lane for maybe even longer than we would have liked to have been. So there's a lot of the name. So you have to also just be, and again, I'm totally comfortable and calm and great and happy about it. But it, that's also just kind of helped produce the lane that we've been driving in for all the time.
But that's interesting. And I think this was the question I wanted to come back on and in sort of a subsequent question. So one, you talk about this lane and this aesthetic so that you've become comfortable with it, you enjoy it, it's how you interpret architecture and living spaces. But then you're hired by a client and they have, a budget and a certain project and there's certain goals
And an aesthetic.
and an aesthetic. So
Yeah,
how do you
yeah,
manage that
yeah.
balance?
You know what? It is a big balance. I mean, look, the business aspects of it are, it is all wrapped up in that. How do we balance it? You just do it.
Well, maybe being
We're
conscious.
also an interesting firm, and you know, and some of that's my doing, and some of it's just where the reality is sort of taking us. But we ultimately don't drive like a sort of aesthetic, like a sort of what I would call like sometimes like a particular fetish, or like, you know, like a modern fetish, or a historic fetish. Like we don't really have that lane, and it's conceptually what I tell people a lot in like our employees when we're training them is that, like, you know, ultimately like architecture is not first and foremost in what we do. Like we're ultimately like a very highly driven service organization. And I like to imagine that we're like working the front desk at like the nicest, most, you know, comfortable hotel in the world,
Right.
you know, that I've ever been to. Like, so when people come to us, they feel seen and understood.
They can give you any
and
request.
They can give us the request, and we won't necessarily like go, sorry,
Sure.
you know.
Yeah. You're like, of course, sir.
Which we may want to say a lot, you know,
Right.
but it's really very much. I worked at the front desk at the Burbank Airport Hilton. That was my first job in LA.
Okay.
So
Is that where
so I relate a lot of it back, you know, like,
Right.
to all the BS,
Of course,
you know,
yeah.
that people like bring to you at the front desk. You can imagine the things that people see in a hotel. And we see a lot of it, you know, and these are like intimate, long relationships with people. Like when someone comes to us and trusts us with designing their house, that relationship's like a minimum of, at this point, like 3 years.
Right.
Like sometimes we have like client one that I was talking to you about, you know, earlier, like that's a 20+ year relationship, you know, and we're on, I don't know how many projects it's been now, 4 or 5 just for that one client.
Right.
And so these are, you know, it's basically like you have to enjoy the person. You know, I think in real estate, you're kind of lucky sometimes and interior designers are lucky sometimes because, you know, if a rotten egg comes along, you make the transaction and you kind of move on.
They say it's more transactional.
They may not come back and sort of purchase another home from you, or you may
but it's like a 3 month.
Yes, it's a shorter window, and it's the same
even
with
a year. But
it's the same with interior design sometimes. You know, depending on what kind of interior architecture or design and
right, your relation with your designer, there seems to be coming and going like it's a lifelong.
Oh my God,
like she's on the payroll.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and that's right. And so you asked about our firm breakdown. We have 2 interior specific designers on the project, but also people classically trained in like interior architecture as well, and
which is more like finished material
5
stuff.
or 6, yeah. There's 5 or 6 licensed, registered architects, and an office manager, and a property manager, and then another, I forget how many are left, but 10 to 12 professionally trained, you know, employees with degrees in architecture. So very qualified.
So it sounds like about 20 of you guys.
There's 20 of us. There's about 20 or 21 right now. So we're back up to a large firm. It's still in that sort of in between, like everything from like 5 to 25 or 30 employees in architecture is like tough and rough as far as like, you know, just the sort of mechanics of the profitability. It's not until you get into the next step, things, you know, you have to have an HR president, but it starts getting a little bit more complicated at the level that we're at.
Right. Yeah. Well, very cool. One of the things you made me think about when you're mentioning, you know, the clients and the life of the relationship is a lot of your clients and these ones that have the capacity to do a half dozen homes with you are very successful, well-heeled individuals that can buy homes in LA and rebuild them. What have you seen your successful clients do that maybe you've picked up some like tips, tricks, like real estate stuff I know you guys work with a bit of developers. Has there been like a common thread between, some of these clients, how they, make their money, or, how they come into the position, or how they handle things, or not?
I think that's a tough question for our office because we actually don't work with a lot of developers.
Fine.
The developers that we're working with, we can talk about are more of some of our preservation projects actually. But I think there's definitely a conversation with all of our clients about no one's just flippant with their transactions in their homes that they're purchasing, right?
Right.
They want specific customized homes, but they also realize that they may not be there forever, and that some of their decisions may not be good for the value of the property. Right. So, but we're on all ends of the spectrum with it. So it just really depends. I think what's interesting about that question is more how often a value and development sort of answer or question actually aligns with architecture.
Oh, interesting.
So they don't have to be separate questions. And so I think in one of the questions that you gave me earlier was what do you see people, I can't remember what the question is, but what do people do that you don't like to see, or I can't remember the question, but it just made me think of people that.
Well, it was the same token. It could have been one or two. The flip side of what are you seeing that they're doing succeeding? What are you seeing that they fail at? So you get a client and they get in a bad spot with the property. They can't finish it. They're in over their head. They got to sell it. So that could have been the question. Or additionally, I was asking the question of, what do you do when a client has to scale back the budget? I don't know if it was that question, but
yeah, no.
I mean, you get in deep with your clients,
we're in
finances.
The mistakes that I see people make
bad contractors.
are things look, they buy an asset, and there's a reason why they buy the asset. It has a beautiful yard. It has a garage. It has a certain amount of bedrooms. It has a certain amount of bathrooms. And so they come in, they want to live there. They want to do it their way, or they've seen something that they want to replicate. And so whatever those goals and values are, what does it do to the asset that they've purchased? And so it's when they start sort of removing the fabric of the very thing that they've purchased, where all of a sudden they've just thrown the asset that they purchased. They paid a lot of money for this asset. They've just thrown it out the window. I tell my clients all the time, you just threw that out the window going down the 101.
Yeah.
So whether it's your favorite part of the property or not, you paid for it, and you're about to pay for it again, maybe 2 or 3-fold by whatever you're going to replace it with, or worse, not replace it with. So that's a common question asked a lot. So in Los Angeles, the weather's good a lot. I mean, we just came off of a lot of rain, but clients are often saying, let's convert the garage. Let's make it an ADU, or let's make it a gym, or I don't need that, or they just want to put storage out there, and you look at real estate and the values, and that house that you bought for $2 million or $1 million or $2 million in 7 years might be worth $8 or $9 million or $12 million. And you just have to kind of think about the future. So where are you going to park your Waymo? Right.
Yes.
Where's the future buyer that you want them to pay $12 million and not have a garage, So, it's those kinds of questions.
Yeah.
You're going to remove that bathroom.
Yeah. And from hanging out with you and you passing through, for an hour and telling me all the things I should not do on my home project.
You removed one of those.
No, so your whole thing was keep it simple.
Yeah.
Because you knew, it was just, place that might not be forever. I was gonna I have a tenant downstairs. I paid a pretty penny to buy it. It's quite a bit of square foot. In Victoria Park. So your thing was don't do it. Don't do anything. And even recently we were looking at something. You were just paint carpet. So there is
clean it.
That's something about you I can sense and I don't know if it was always like that, but as an architect, it's opposite what you'd expect. You've probably had to train over years to realize you should do less.
A lot of it came from my own experience in my own homes.
Okay.
And like making those mistakes in my own homes. Like erasure sucks, you know? Like once you erase something, you can't get it back.
Right.
You know, I'm speaking specifically the thing I'm thinking of is that like, you know, flippantly going, man, I hate that kind of tree. You
Right.
know, like I bought this
Sure.
property and you buy the tree, you know, and there's this tree that like
Yeah, you want flat
is
land.
not of Southern California. It just doesn't seem like it fits the and so you hire somebody to take the tree out and you're like, oh, thank God the tree's gone.
Until the next morning.
And then 3 years later, you're sitting on the porch and you look out and you realize, oh, the tree was blocking a power line. And that's why whoever had owned this property for 75 years or 50 years before me had planted that tree. Now, it might not have been the tree that I had chosen, but I will be dead before a new tree is planted and will cover up that power line.
Right.
And so, you know, sometimes it's that obvious.
Right.
A lot of times it's not. Sometimes you might buy and sell the home before you ever even realize the problem, but all of your guests realize it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. You mentioned you've done a lot of stuff around Hancock Park, and I know I've been walking around there the last couple of years. There's something on a corner that's like, I don't know if this is the primer, but I seem to remember it's a lot of like this off-white, and it's like this great blend of, you know, old historic, but you've really kind of made a transition and, you know, to something a little bit more, you know, just kind of sharp and
sounds like all of our projects are. Which one are you talking about?
But like to that, like, so you got the brick in front of an old Tudor, like,
yeah,
like you guys are a wild machine now, and that's why people are hiring you, because you know, and they can trust you to like how to slowly kind of dip into that. Okay, we're gonna whitewash this. You can do it, because when someone gets like a 5,500 square foot Tudor and they pay, you know, $7 million, you know, in Hancock Park, you better sure as hell hope you know what the fuck you're doing when you start coming in there and trying to renovate this beast. And so, I mean, you guys are like super valuable in that regard. And no wonder you've built a great business and you have all these employees. And, you know, I've seen the work. And, you know, one of the questions I love to ask architects is, what's the most important part of the house? So let me frame the question this way. If a client's in a project and they're in trouble, they got no other skis, they don't have money, and they need to scale back, what's the last thing you're going to compromise on letting them pull from your budget to making the home?
Yeah, the word you used in the pre-language was cheap out on, right?
Yeah.
Right. And so like I take
the cut corner.
I take
And that is important to you because that's the thing that you feel like will show most clearly. You can't hide. That's like the most important part of the house, and that you're really going to feel if you scale back on that. Like, it's the part of the home that really shows and represents.
Yeah, I think I'm the wrong person to ask that question, or not that I'm the wrong person. It's like I just don't see it that way, because for me, the thing that you can cheap out on is just the thought about what to do. It's like, you know, so it's like it's almost better to spend all your money thinking about what to do and then just never do anything. Because the truth is, it's that like hysteria that you're talking about of like, we have to do something.
Yeah.
We have to.
What's it going to be?
What
We have to cut something.
We've bought this unbelievably, incredibly expensive thing, and now what are we going to do with it? Like sometimes the answer is nothing.
Yeah.
Like
especially if you're tight on budget.
Sometimes like you think about it because it's in that thought process where you make all the mistakes, where you make irreparable harm to an otherwise lovely project. It may not meet your values and like what you're looking for, but like, so like for me, it's the thought process. It's just like, don't act like, if you can spare more time and money on waiting and thinking, like that's where you should spend your money.
Right.
You know, look, these are like high quality problems. Like,
yeah, of course,
people have a roof over their heads and like can afford this process. a lot of times also, it's not the worst thing in the world if people run out of money because it stops them.
Yeah,
You know,
for sure.
It's sort of like,
Okay, so like I kind of have this theme that you like this, process, not too much reinvention, but there are times.
I like reinvention.
That's what I was getting
Sometimes
at.
reinvention is radically small.
But sometimes it's not. So where do you see yourself? And I've seen these homes in that historic pocket where you've gone really bold and big. Where are these moments where you're like, tearing the shirt off and you're like, we're going in, we're making this thing modern, we're doing
some projects accept that very easily, and you just kind of know from like immediately. And some of it is the pedigree of the original product. Like sometimes it's trying to like, you can't like force something upon a lot of these houses. So some of our more contemporary modern additions are some of the more successful ones, but honestly, it's just because the original house allowed it and accepted it in a way that like a lot of them wouldn't.
Interesting. So like a better like historic pedigree will allow for a more avant-garde modern adjustment somewhere.
Usually.
Fantastic.
Usually. But you also have to remember, like, let's reframe the conversation about Hancock Park into a development conversation because Hancock Park was a development. Like it was an oil field, in the early 1900s. There was nothing but scrub oak. And, from the late 1800s until 1905, 1910, oil derricks. It looked like,
really?
like you're driving over La Cienega. A lot of the houses that we work on now have capped oil wells in the front yards,
Wow.
So it's like, and someone had a vision. They gridded it off American style, north, south, east, west, and they sold the lots, and the developers to get it started, like the home that I live in on June Street was a spec house. Like it was a developer spec. There were 2 or 3 developers. They had the famous architects that were doing modern work at the time in their office designing revival style homes to make people more comfortable with like East Coast New England and European, cottage styles and Mediterranean, Spanish colonial, Monterey, all the revival styles. These architects were making money working for the developers, churning out floor plans. A lot of the floor plans that you go into, like my house is Tudor, for instance. Well, there was a house on the next street over because it has a tennis court that I really wanted us to buy and sort of upgrade to the tennis court a few years back. And I walked in the house and I was like, there's something, I'm uneasy. What's going on? And then I realized it was the same floor plan.
But
it was a Italianate Mediterranean revival.
Right.
Home.
Same floor plan.
And so you get to looking at it, same developer, same architect.
You start walking around with your eyes closed and you're like, I can make my way through this house.
Yeah. And so the architect for our home, C.J. Smale, S-M-A-L-E, was like, he did like Art Deco theaters. Like when you go to Sepulveda, right by the airport, there's like those big Art Deco theaters a lot through there. Oh, Manchester, yeah. So anyway, it's pretty funny. But just to bring it back to the developer,
these are these faux kind of.
It's all faux.
Right.
Even the modern stuff is faux. I mean, I guess is the point is that like we're all like, and so that's where like the anti-architect that I'm sort of talking about comes from, is that I realize that it's like it's in the service and understanding our clients' values and who they are, that like I can take my sort of big ego out of it. And even though I want to be doing certain things, we're really good at understanding like what makes for a really good house and how we can change their lives. And usually most of our clients don't even realize what it is.
Right.
Because it's not really the style or the aesthetic.
Yes.
There's the fetish of that. And with social media, it makes it even worse.
Yeah.
But it's like what we're really good at is like the quiet stuff. And people kind of don't even understand what it is and why we're doing it.
I love
and
it.
That makes it really tricky for somebody like you to sell it.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? So like it's because it defies all the capitalist sort of imagery that's so needed to sort of sell.
Right.
You
mean like in terms of like new design now flips,
yes,
like they're putting in
yes,
like so much
yes,
style,
yes.
like so much.
So going back to your question about like what can you not cheap out on? It depends on what you're trying to accomplish.
Right.
Like you might be able to trick somebody and sell something faster if that's what you're trying to do. Or if you want to change your life and make a really comfortable house, you just think about it a little bit more and do the right thing.
Yeah. Love it.
Yeah.
Super cool. I want to take it away from kind of architecture a little bit, and touch on your interest in real estate development and finding opportunities. So I worked in your office above that garage in 2012.
Were we still in the garage?
Yeah, you are. And the first week, there was this guy, Tyler, I think it was an intern. And, in addition to him
talking about real estate, he's selling Portugal right now.
Oh, wow.
You got to look him up. You won't believe Tyler Clark.
Fantastic.
He might even be with.
Cool. Okay, you got to connect us.
Anyway.
Yeah, definitely. I know a lot of people.
He's selling to all the Americans.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
unbelievable.
Have you guys been? Have you guys hung out there?
No, I want to check it out.
Yeah. So that week, he, in addition to him dragging me out to do a Starbucks run and kind of meeting everyone, I came back and I seen him on the visitor non-agent side of the MLS. I'm like, what is this? What are you doing? And he's like, I'm just monitoring a property search for Sonny in South LA. This was back when people, I think, still called it South Central. Anything under 300,000. I'm just watching this for Sonny. And then, last year you dragged me out to Venice in mid-city to look at some pie-shaped lot that was
I still think that was a cool property.
And you've won on some of these. I understand you did good on this thing on Fairfax, this kind of warehouse. So what is it that back in 2012 you had this intern looking at stuff in South LA for 300? Is it that you are curious at how you could reinvent something, or that you just want to find an opportunity? Or just you? Yeah.
Some of it, it's a little bit of all that. Some of it is I'm just a hustler. So
Sure.
I'm always looking for, some project or to hustle or to always wanting to make more money. It's sort
great,
of the system that we sort of work in. So I'm always trying to
that's
figure
the
out,
joy of real estate.
Where's my lottery ticket?
Yeah.
So some of it is that.
And okay. What
So
else
some of it's lottery ticket. Some of it is driving by things and thinking, boy, I could make that better.
Yeah, right.
So there's a lot of that. So that gets in the way. That gets in the way a lot.
That's the dreamer.
That's the dreamer. That gets in the way a lot.
And you get really excited when you see that shithole on Venice.
Yeah.
And you can see what do they call it? The diamond in the rough.
Yeah.
You can find something aesthetically.
But if I had to guess about what he was doing and what you were seeing him doing before the financial crisis, the 2008, I think I was, and when our firm was starting, small lot development was just coming out. Right. And the city hadn't even figured it out yet.
Oh, so you're talking 2004.
2004,
Okay.
2005. So back then, so what Alex and I were doing was I don't know if you remember the Croft house that Carrie lived in.
Of course.
Yeah.
I just had Chipotle up the corner from there.
So, that's where you went to the Chipotle, right there by Croft?
Yeah, by the Goodwill.
So, Alex and I were buying single-family residences on underdeveloped lots. And we were buying the ones that we could afford at the time, which meant not fully 5,000 square foot lots, but like that lot, for instance, was 3,000 square feet.
Right.
And we were buying them because we knew that the small lot development was coming and that for the first time you could start to subdivide lots. And so that's why we sort of got into it.
Right. Because that's a small lot subdivision is taking a combination of these smaller lots.
Yeah.
And not having these size requirements of the land.
Right. So all of a sudden you could and you could also put more than one house on the property for once. So that's why I bought Croft, because it was a single family small home sitting on a 3,000 square foot lot.
Yeah, then you picked up another two lots.
We were gonna anyway. So, and then I was we had done some flips. So we bought some houses like that, even that what happened is the city had, even though they had passed a small lot, they hadn't got their ducks in a row, so you couldn't really do it yet. Like
Right.
they would slow you down. So from a development perspective, it just took too long to do it. So we would buy these properties, and then we would just get stuck with them because the city wasn't ready for us yet. We lucked out and sold the ones before the crash, and so we were so lucky. But then we were stuck with Croft, which we just moved into. So we moved the office into it, and then I ultimately ended up renting in it and then sold it to Carrie. But that was why we were looking at it. And so I think at the time, the market was changing. It was 4 years later.
Yeah, 2012.
So it was starting to change. And so I was considering dipping my toes back in.
Yeah.
So that's what we were doing. So I was looking for
Got it.
single family residences on undeveloped lots
Got
for
it.
$300,000 anywhere.
Good.
And
I've always
I had,
wondered why.
amassed some giant, and probably more than once my husband said, "You're crazy."
And you drive out there. With
And
it.
also, I was just busy. So I was running my office. So I didn't have the luxury. Like, that's what's hard about being an architect and having these visions is that, like, we're servicing our clients.
Of course.
So I don't really have time to stop and do it. And so that's one of the things I always have been annoyed by, that I couldn't stop and play with this stuff.
No, I mean, I have that balancing act too, because I like to do my own value add investments, but I have clients
Or
that I need to
servicing the
sell
clients and trying to
houses
make theirs successful.
Yeah. And I do think it's important to, and I think there's a lot of benefits from juggling both. You could service your clients in a different capacity because of that understanding. And, it's important to have your own, investments. You just can't service your clients while they make all the money and have all the fun. So good for you. What of those have sort of surprised you and really turned out to be winners where you got them and you didn't really kind of know how
Usually all the winners for me come from mistakes. So, and the Fairfax property is a good example of that.
Yeah, and that's not far from here.
It's not far from here. So, and that happened because my office was growing. We were outgrowing our space. I was tired of growing rent. And so, like, I thought common knowledge meant, if you're paying rent, you're throwing it away.
Sure.
So I started looking for a building that we could buy. So I found a building in, what do you call that? Mid-city, Washington and La Brea. I thought that was a good up-and-coming neighborhood, which it was. I got that part right.
Right.
And so, but it was one of those like inside deals where the building had been sitting there for a year and a half, and all they needed was like some dumbass like me to come in and make an offer so that they could then do $1 more and get it because they knew the realtor or something,
Oh,
So it was
shit.
one of
Okay.
those shady kind of
So that
things.
didn't work out, that one.
So it didn't work out, but I was so upset. I was like, I'm going to show you guys. And so I called Carolyn and Mike, and I was like, I need a building. And they bought this building out from under me. And so I found this Fairfax building, which was amazing.
I love
but
it.
it was 3 times bigger than what I needed.
You're like, I don't care, we're buying it.
But like within like a couple of weeks, I talked them into, they thought it was cool. And we're like, like, okay, we'll buy it. And I'm going to move my office into
But
it.
you
and It's going to
didn't.
be great. Then I was like, oh, now I got to move.
Right.
And it's going to cost this much money.
For sure.
And,
And it's a lot of square foot,
we
the
have
new
to
one.
move all this stuff over there.
It was bigger.
And so, but like we had the luxury of paying cash for the building and at a good time in the market.
Sure.
And I just said, I had a panic attack and said, I can't move in. So we rented it out. And I found out really fast that if you have cash in real estate and can buy a building, you can turn enormous amounts of return on investment. I mean, I think our return, like I can't remember it. It's some ridiculous amount, like 20%.
Because you're not paying interest payments to the bank.
Exactly. It's just, so it was like a total mistake. That was the best real estate decision I've ever made.
The cash
is outperforming the market twice.
That's right. And being a cash gives you more abilities to pivot because you're not against the clock. And if you lose for a couple years while you're getting entitlement, like it's great to be cash. And so it's cool that how that came about. So you guys,
These aren't sexy projects, are they, for you? You were looking for something sexy on that. So again, the anti-architect, that project is just sitting there just like it was when we bought it. We've done nothing to it. We've painted it and cleaned it up, and I.
But you probably.
And I take calls about where the internet comes into the building.
What's this?
I take phone calls from the tenants about where the internet enters the building.
They're wondering
when they need to like update. When they need to make updates to the building or whatever.
Yeah. But you obviously, had the eye for something a little bit cooler than most.
Yeah, look, it's a good neighborhood, and I've got contingency plans. So, like, I still may need to move my office into that building down the road. So I have a building that's waiting for me. I don't need to stress out about.
Great.
And I also have development plans. So we have development plans with all these, bonus densities for housing. Like. I have a project sitting nearly schematically designed in the wings that's 6 stories tall, and then will be the tallest building on that zone of,
so cool.
If I need to, if it needs to get there, if it makes sense for somebody at some point, or otherwise I'll just sell it.
That's what I love about real estate, and this comes up as a recurring theme on most episodes, is the flexibility with it. There's so many ways to skin the cat. You got options. And you're proving that, like, you got one property was going to be for this, now you're renting it, and then you may develop it. So I love that. I do want to touch on and not forget to hear about this project that a landlord in Melrose Hill, it's a famous architectural apartment building.
Okay, yeah.
How many units and over time?
One of the coolest projects that we've ever worked on. So, and I'd like to say that I take credit for it in my office, but I worked on it early on and found out really fast it was one of those projects where I couldn't deal with the personalities and the personalities, I'll be honest.
Yeah.
There's so
going back how many years?
Parks.
Like this started with you.
This project's been going on for over 10 years. But Corey, my business partner, he is the rock star of patience and perseverance. So Corey Miller, he has been sort of spearheading this project, but, and it's also been through 2 owners. So the original owner brought us the first international style building built in the United States by Richard Neutra.
Wow.
It's cast in place concrete building. So
cast in place concrete.
The shell is cast in place concrete. The interior is wood framing. So it's a hybrid that you just also never see, but also just the international style is one of his first buildings as well.
How would you describe for the audience that doesn't know?
Quietly discrete, most important architectural works in modern architecture in the United States. So really
how would you
cool
describe international architecture? Define what that, like, if someone looked it up in the dictionary.
International style architecture. Well, it was first of all, like, socialist isn't the right word, but it was in that era. So uniform design, clean lines. You're talking also on the beginning and end of the hills of like the Mies van der Rohe and Chicago and New York, but this is a sort of brutal version of international style. So.
Yeah, when you talk about the communists, I think of brutalism. So it seems
this building is from the 20s, So
at the
same time that,
but it's a Neutra.
Yes.
I just associate with him with more like mid-century. But.
No, so favorite architects in Los Angeles, and especially moving from Mississippi, like. When I arrived here, Rudolf Schindler and Richard Neutra, for me, those are just like the godfathers of modern architecture in LA, and both sort of predate mid-century. So, the houses like the Kuhn all-electric houses, the Kuhn 1 and 2 up on Hillside and Fairfax that the Kuhn 2 we did historic structure reports for, those, again, were like, in that conversion to all electric, Oh,
really?
So like they're early 20s,
which is what we're doing today.
If not teens, but you were moving from houses that didn't even have electric. Might have been even. I don't know why they. Oh, maybe it was the gas thing. Anyway.
So that's international architecture.
Neutra's before like a lot. Like they go through the case study period, but Schindler and Neutra predate the case study.
It's kind of like those guys in Hancock Park. You said they were hired to do these like faux like East Coast things, but they were actually kind of trying to do something else. They just were making money doing that.
That's right.
The Neutras were not
So
only mid-century.
Neutra was working in these same developers' offices
Wow.
while he was designing this building. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So 1920s.
Yeah.
Your first client 10 years ago buys it. How many units is this apartment house?
47 units.
Oh, it's a big. Okay, because
It's a
I've
big
just driven
apartment
by it.
building.
I've seen it from Western. I walked by it.
No, it's beautiful.
And then so he had it, and then but it became almost like fully vacant at one point, almost. Right?
Well, they had like 3 residents that didn't move out, and so it slowed the process down.
My God, out of 40, wow.
Yeah, I mean, by the time he bought it, it probably only had 12 residents in it. It was really dilapidated.
Because someone like knew like this thing needed to be gutted.
Yeah,
and they were just sort of like.
Well, it wasn't gutted because it's got like so much original fabric. So like
it does?
that's part of
So it hasn't been butchered.
painstaking process. That's exactly right. So that's part of the painstaking process. And that's why a project like that is so complicated for a developer, and so why it's been through 3. Because the timing on the loans and just the cash flow to keep this thing going.
Did they hire you guys to do some of the
on.
units, or was it like we got to wait for it to be entirely empty before you start any construction?
No, we started. Well, again, we're just the designers, so
Okay,
we're not the builders. So, but we did the design and helped with the historic structure report right from the beginning.
Right.
So that's what we jumped on, was the historic structure report, and so a lot of what we did was document the fabric of what was missing, what was there, what
was
needed to be
there.
put back.
What's like the interiors like?
The units had like linoleum floors, very cool units, different kinds of modern floor plans where some were studios, some were 1 bedrooms. I think there's a couple of 2 bedrooms.
Big floor to ceiling glass.
No, you see the ribbon glass. So if you look at the building, and so that's a lot of the international style as well. But like it sort of predates a lot of the large mid-century Neutra single residential glass buildings that we're all accustomed to seeing.
Okay.
In fact, the Kuhn houses that I was talking about are like the transition between, and hillside homes are sort of the transition between kind of, I mean, I'm saying this out loud, I have no idea. Barbara Limpert will probably kill me if she sees this, but it's kind of like, anyway, no, it's not like the full bleed glass. It's horizontal ribbons. There's a horizontality to the building. The windows play up, and then the way that the board form is formed to sort of emphasize the horizontal. So it's a lot of glass, but it's ribbons.
Yeah, and we'll flip a picture up for people that are watching.
Yeah.
So that's
steel,
super cool.
Like steel casement windows, and that's been a lot of the expense.
So now it's finally coming to fruition. And it's
getting close.
They're going to start filling up the units.
It's getting close.
And the area has been working out.
I don't know that it's there yet, but it's getting close.
The area has been like
forget. You should include some information on this of the area. I forget the name of
the neighborhood?
I forget the name of the guy who bought up a lot of the buildings.
Yeah, he's actually like the son of like a big billionaire guy. And he came out here, was in the film business, and he started like luring West Hollywood art galleries and New York galleries over there.
That's right.
Because there's great architecture, and he's like, I can give you guys discounted rent. His dad had all the relationships with the galleries from New York. And now there's great restaurants and then this building that you guys have done. So that's super cool. And then I know you guys undertook a big farm acreage development for your residents in Ojai. So tell us about that. What drew you out there? How did that project go? I understand it has like the first tennis court, like historic, tennis court out there.
Yeah. Yeah. No, like
and a bunch of donkeys
and horses. Yeah, donkeys and horses. Yeah, that
like you guys have been looking a long time out. Remember?
Yeah, we had a place in Vermont for a while. We had this fantasy of land, and so when Mike and I first met, we would go up to spend weekends on Ojai and Idlewild, and we just always sort of had this fantasy of land. At the time, we couldn't do it.
Yeah.
And on one of our trips, again, when our daughter was born early on, we went to New England, to places we had never been, and we ended up with this place in Vermont. because we like stopped and checked out this land. It was like, you can get 100 acres for how much? And so the next thing you know, it was another like impulsive thing. It was like all of a sudden you find yourself with 100 acres in Vermont, But it was the most incredible accident. We took the kids there for 15 years. But as the kids got older, it got harder to go there for Thanksgiving, for the holidays, for spring break, and for Christmas. And we also just wanted to travel the world and go to other places.
Yes.
And so Mike's a horseback rider, and I love it as well. And we just wanted to sort of bring that fantasy back closer to Southern California. And we had been looking around. Yeah. We hadn't, to be honest, we weren't really interested in Ohio. We thought it got too hot because we had taken Josie there.
Initially, I thought you were more looking Santa Barbara proper.
We were looking in Santa Barbara. We were looking in Hope Ranch.
Of course, yeah.
Good horsey property.
Do you ever come across a Sotheby's broker out there named Dusty Baker?
Sounds familiar.
Yeah, he was just in the show. He sells a lot in Hope Ranch. And I know you said like you really don't want a farm, an active farm business to
we definitely
buy.
Didn't want the farm part, but we wanted the horse part. And the problem with Hope Ranch is that it was like the Palisades or like Brentwood or like Hancock Park. It was just like all the LA people just there.
Yeah.
But with horses.
Sure.
And honestly, there weren't even that many horses. Like people had
They just give them the horses. They're like props.
Yeah, there weren't even really that many horses. So it just felt like Los Angeles light.
Sure.
Up in Santa Barbara. So
and Ohio really isn't.
And we
as
did
hot.
put our money on. We did put some bids on some properties. In fact, there was a mid-century that was gorgeous in Hope Ranch that had like, I don't know, 3 acres, ocean views, and it was a similar thing. It had been sitting on the market forever, and the moment the Flatlanders came in, the gay Flatlanders came in and put
Flatlanders?
I'm gonna blame it on that. I'm
Flatlanders?
still a little bitter about it.
What's a Flatlander?
Like the people from out of town, or like if you're in the mountains, like the people
Flatlander
from the
the
out of towners.
Maybe that's like
what we still are in Ohio. I still like when we
cruising.
look at people and they look at you like, yeah, I'm a Flatlander. There's like, what time do we get to become townies? So anyway, it didn't work out. We lost it. And so a friend of ours told us about this place, and we went. And again, it was another like little happy accident.
Yeah.
We went, saw it. It was beautiful, stunning views, walked on the porch, and we sort of bought it before we realized what we were getting into.
Yeah. And what was the house? What was the residence on the site?
So the house is it's simple shingle style house,
Turn of the
but
century?
also designed 1901, designed by architect Austin, who designed City Hall in Los Angeles and
Wow.
the Griffith Observatory.
Wow.
But it was like his original shack.
Come
So it's
on.
like it's a I don't know, 4,000 square foot house, but like sitting in the most incredible, like commanding view of the valley. And another Chicago architect, Berkeley Brandt, built outbuildings around it, and there's barns and anyway, we bought this house, and again, we've always dreamed of living in a modern house, and we found ourselves, in another historic preservation job. So it was a multi-year, 3 to 5 year process of, sort of walking it back through the preservation steps. And then the other component that, again, it took us a long time to figure out were the orchards. So it's one of the oldest continuously working citrus ranches in California. So it's been sort of ranching citrus since the late 1800s.
So how does that work? There's farmers that lease the land, or you sell them the fruit, or you get a share of it?
No, we do the work. So
okay.
So we're active growers. We have people that live on the property full time, and then we outsource, certain irrigation and things, and then we outsource picking, but we sell directly to markets,
That's so cool.
through places like Index Fresh and through Ojai Pixies. We sell Ojai Pixies. That we grow organic avocado and the Ojai Pixie tangerine. There's like 30 families, and we all pick and we grow, and we send them to a packing house together, and we sell them all together as Ojai Pixie tangerines. The avocados go out as California avocados, so they're sold under that big umbrella.
Although those are like creamy, amazing. Yeah.
We sell a couple different kinds. Hass, which is like the kind you see mostly. little gym, which is it actually sounds small, but it's actually a little bit bigger than Hass. We grow some tropical varieties called
Yeah.
like bacon. And then there's also like Valencia oranges and navels. So it's a full undertaking.
What's your favorite part about that property? Is it something about the house that he built in 1901? Is it the way, what do they call it? Like it sits on the site. What do you call that? The way it's sited?
Yeah.
Is it the like the retaining, wall? Like, what is your favorite part about that home? And did you not realize it until you finished, redoing it after 5 years?
There's so many parts. I think it's in its totality. I mean, look, there's so many layers of history. It's like we didn't talk about the tennis court, but it's got one, like one of the oldest tennis courts in Ohio, and it's got this horseshoe-shaped stone retaining wall, like just the whole way. But the planning and the siting of it, a lot of it was out of necessity, but like it just sort of evolved slowly over time, and it's got over 125 years of curated, thoughtful sort of living. And there's a lot of pressure that comes with that as well, because like we don't want to we want to both do our thing, but we also don't want to screw any of that up. Because again, that's the value that the asset that we purchase.
Well, knowing your forte and your skill set of doing less and taking it slowly, you were the right person for it. And I've been in the house, and I told you I'm not kidding you. It sounds like out there, but I had amazing visual dreams, because your house is filled with just such great art and I don't know, wallpaper and just materials, like and books and a lot of art. And that kind of struck me to ask you a question. Let's say you were a painter. What type of canvases do you think you'd want to make?
Nudes.
Okay, yeah.
No, I'm kidding. Not really. I mean, I do consider myself an artist. And
well, you're a good sketcher, right?
Well, probably less of a good sketcher than more sort of art, abstract art. But yeah. What,
have you ever dabbled?
As an architect, we have to draw. Yeah, I paint, and I've done pottery, and so I'd
what do you
love
like
to be able to do all that more. But I also never got to I took art classes in school, but I never got to take the nude class.
What would you think? Would you do modern? What do you call it? Abstract impression. Would you do color? Would you do
the
collage?
thing, I like oil painting, and the things like if I could find the time and space to do it more, I like to paint paintings of like things that have happened in my life. Like, so it's just very personal things. Like,
what do they call
memories.
that? It's like where the psychoanalysis, like that's what the drip guy was doing. It was just like, they call that, like it's just like a subconscious flow from your head to the
baggage. They call it baggage. I want to paint my baggage. Baggage painter.
So that's what you want to do, right?
I want to paint my baggage. Yeah, no, I don't know
what to call
it. But yeah, I would love to paint. And but I hope I get to that.
So a little bit more kind of serious, and something that you've probably pondered. If you were to publish a architecture coffee table book,
yeah,
what would the book be about?
Yeah. I mean, look, I see people in our spaces doing this all the time, and I'm definitely jealous of it. But I also don't think I have this sort of like chutzpah. I don't know if chutzpah's the word, but like,
yeah, you do.
I don't think I have the confidence to sort of do it of my own stuff. Maybe I'll get to that point at some point. So I hope maybe I get to a point where I can sort of step back, because it all seems, even like with 20 years of practice, it all seems still too raw and fresh. And even in the photograph, like we're really bad about immortalizing our projects and updating our website and social media, just because
you guys are doing a great job with that.
Because
everyone should go on June Street's Instagram.
Self-conscious about like putting it out there, because so many times I look at it and I'm still questioning like all of our decisions that we make. So the art book, the coffee table, as far as like June Street specific, would be difficult for me. But
it would be a beautiful book.
I'd love to make one. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Man.
I appreciate that. What I'd love to make though is maybe I don't know, something tennis and architecture.
Oh, cool.
Or
Yeah.
there's
That's in vogue these days.
there's a couple of great tennis books out there already, but I feel like I could get a little bit more dirty. Like,
There's not a lot.
There's a couple of really good ones. I forget the photographer.
And then we could bring in your attraction to the stadium.
Yeah, well, the sports stuff, that's
Yeah.
exactly right. And also spirituality. So like, sports is like a spiritual conduit kind of thing. I don't know, and architecture mixed together.
Well, yeah, let's talk about that before we look to our final questions. I know you sent out this email last summer about how tennis kind of like has changed you and sort of helped you. And you were promoting this, this tennis weekend to come to the farm and play on this historic court. And I'm so glad that we came up and did it. But what is that? Like, a lot of people look at sports and as like a vessel to better themselves. And so what's that been like for you? Because like when like 10 years ago, I didn't know you play tennis, and all of a sudden you're like hitting me up. Let's play
never
tennis.
played.
And then I got on the court with you, and it was amazing.
I never played. Well, part of the reason I started playing tennis was because we purchased a house in Ojai.
Yeah.
And so part of it had this old historic rundown court that needed to be fixed. And so it's like, what do? Do you get like, just let it continue to be? Anyway, so we fixed it. And then during COVID, we were at home a lot. And so, we fixed the court, you start playing tennis, and I just kind of fell in love with it.
Yeah.
But, I got angry. I got really angry because I wasn't, it's like, here I am at 45, 50,
Right.
50 now, almost 50 now. But like back then I was like 45. I was like, and I like to be good at the sports I play, and I just wasn't good. And it was really frustrating, and I was getting upset. And so then I started getting good enough to like want to play more. And I don't know, there was something about tennis. I realized like all the emotions and the outburst and the anger that I was having was like a mirror of really what was going on in my life.
Yeah.
Whether it be my practice or with my family or with my kids or with my friends. And so I don't know, I met this guy that was the tennis director, at one of the parks that I played at, and we just hit it off, and he calmed me down.
Right.
And through that, we came up with this idea to sort of have this meditation and grounding workout that we've sort of come up with. And we've, it's been this, I think yesterday we were meeting and working on it, and we call it a spiritual scavenger hunt.
Mm-hmm.
So we're just, like looking for ways to connect to people, and tennis happens to be the conduit, but it's kind of growing beyond tennis.
Yeah.
It's, it's like not all about tennis. It's about, we did the deep dive meditations and
discussions and
big
food
discussions.
and walks.
Food and like, like mindfulness around food and togetherness in ways that like we weren't doing.
It was awesome. Hopefully you guys will organize some more. Before I hit the questions that I like to ask all the guests as we wrap it up, is there anything that maybe you thought that we would touch on that we didn't, or any, final questions, thoughts, opinions?
Let me check my notes here.
Yeah.
All right.
The Sonny that I remember, very detailed.
No. I'm both honored and annoyed by being here.
All right. Well, hopefully these last
honored that annoyed because it's not easier, not because of you, but I'm grateful, and
I really loved it, man.
I'm proud that you thought that I would be interesting enough to do it.
Oh, hell yeah.
So
hell yeah.
Yeah, and I'm honestly like, I'll throw this back on you before I go. Like, I am honestly, like, I cannot believe what you've done in such a short amount of time.
Oh.
Like, it's so impressive and so beautiful, and I know that it's been a lot of hard work, but when you talk back to when you were working for me, like, I realized, I knew then, but I really know now what you were doing, which is that you were learning about what you were about to do.
I didn't know what I was doing at that point in time. I wrote you a thank you card after I catered at one of your events. And I said, and then, you hired me. And so I don't know what I was doing. And you gave me an environment where I could start, using computers and other skills and sort of.
You were good at laminating.
I don't remember that. That must have been someone else. That was Tyler.
No, you're a good laminator.
No, but I mean, like, my best friends. Yeah, I mean, some of my, great early forming, my first exposure to real estate in LA, and how people can reimagine the houses and the opportunities and your clients. Even if I was just dropping off a bottle of wine at Christmas for them or the New Year's, it was a great exposure, and I'm grateful for that.
Yeah, I think I can see how it was a good foundation for the success that you've had, and you've gone and blown so far above and beyond and past it. So it's pretty impressive.
Let's do a fire round.
I'm not going to
looking back, looking forward 3 years. Where do you want to be? Professionally with the firm
in Italy, running my business from a
beautiful
a phone.
10 years. What would you have done different going back?
I wish I could have just enjoyed it a little bit more.
Okay,
and not been so stressed out and uptight the whole time.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite book, movie, or song?
Favorite book,
movie or song?
I mean, that would take too long to talk about. Yeah, I like Dana Cuff, professor at UCLA, and wrote her writings. Joan Didion. They allowed me to sort of understand LA. And then a guy who used to be the planning director at West Hollywood, John Chase. I think his book was Glitter, Stucco, and Dumpster Diving.
I gotta look up.
Forever, reframed how I see the city, and that it doesn't need to all be polished.
I gotta look that up. If you can answer quickly, why are you doing all this? Why are you working, trying to get these investments and
for my ego?
There you go. I love it. Great fucking answer. I love it. This is awesome, man.
Okay.
Thank you.